Yaron, tell me about what that means. Economic self-interest for nations, particularly in capitalism markets, and how it relates to the Trump White House.
Well, it really is about economic self-interest of the individual, which manifests itself in capitalism. It's in the economic self-interest of all individuals that we live in a free society, a society in which, you know, property is privately owned and the government protects us but leaves us alone otherwise. So we're free to become entrepreneurs, to become doctors, to become lawyers, to become news personalities. So we're free to determine our own destiny. So that's what it really means, the morality of freedom and of free markets. And really the unbelievable success that capitalism and freedom have had over the last 200 years in creating wealth and prosperity.
But from a macro standpoint, I mean, the U.S. faces a $375+ billion trade deficit with China. They're not the capitalist market.
Who cares? So this idea of a trade deficit matters is bogus economics. There's not a single economist worth his salt, not a single one, of any validity and legitimacy who believes trade deficits matter one iota. Trade deficits don't matter. Now, government deficits matter. The fact that the Trump administration is spending like there's no tomorrow and riling up massive deficits, and instead of dealing with that, they're distracting us into dealing with a problem that doesn't exist. I love Chinese goods. The fact that I have a trade deficit with China is equivalent to me having a trade deficit with a grocery store. I go to the grocery store, leave the cash there, and get goods. Both win. I win because I got the goods. They win because they got the cash. It's a win-win transaction. There's no problem with China.
But using even that grocery store analogy, you owe the grocery store money. You need the grocery store. You need food from it to live. The idea that is this a problem in a macro sense when people in America need jobs? They need to be able to afford a living.
But there's plenty of jobs. Unemployment in America is 3.9%. There's no problem of unemployment in the United States. And if there is a problem of unemployment in the United States, it's because of over-regulation and too high taxes and too little investment. It's not because we're buying things from China. If I buy a T-shirt from China that used to cost $20, now I can buy it for $5. That $15 I can now save and invest and create jobs within the United States. So having cheaper goods from China benefits Americans overwhelmingly. It is a huge boon to the American economy. And not only that, the dollars I send to China, where do they go? They come back to the United States. They come back in the form of buying treasury bonds and reducing interest rates in the United States, and then buying assets.
The Department, Stephen Mnuchin, wants this deficit to go down to $200 billion. They're even talking about debating sanctions on ZTE, this company that sells good trade secrets.
This is pure politics. It has nothing, zero
no grounding
to do.
In economic need.
No grounding in economic. President Trump's economic advisor on trade is a guy, Peter Navarro, who does not know economics. He is a hack. And there is no economic grounding for what Mnuchin is trying to do. This is pure politics. Trump played on populist fears of a trade deficit. He played on populist fears of China. And as a consequence of playing on those populist fears, now Mnuchin has to come in and find a solution. And Mnuchin knows better, right? I believe that Mnuchin knows that reducing the amount of exports or increasing the amount of decreasing the amount of
imports. But doesn't China pose a real threat? I mean, their economy, their national infrastructure, their military. Doesn't America need to try and do something? You know, the hands-off approach may not work with a nation of that size and scope.
No, win-win. A trade with China, America wins, China wins. Standard of living in China goes up. They consume more goods, which means they import more stuff from America. America's standard of living goes up. We can provide them now with stuff that only we can do, like designing an iPhone or like financial services, which they do not have.
That's the argument that they're stealing.
So the real problem, so now we're getting to the crux of it. The real problem with China is that they steal intellectual property. Great. Let's deal with that. But stop dealing with the bogus, just economically ignorant issue of trade deficit and focus in on you can't steal our IP. And if you steal our IP, we will ban those products in the U.S. If there's stolen IP in the phones that you import, we won't import those phones.
From your perspective, I mean, from the Ayn Rand Institute, what's the idea? We're running out of time. I want to get your your quick sense on tariffs in general, Ben.
Zero unilateral. If Israel or if any country in the world wants a great economy and wants to do well, it should institute unilaterally zero tariffs, and both capital will flow in and goods will flow in, and the standard of living would go up dramatically.
All right, that's a perspective here only on Daily Dose. Yaron, thank you so much for being with us.
Pleasure.